Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. With thousands of protesting farmers marching towards Delhi once again, the situation at the state borders continues to remain tense. Section 144 has been imposed for about a month in the capital. Internet services have been suspended until Friday in select areas of Punjab, and both on Tuesday and Wednesday, security personnel resorted to firing tear gas shells and rubber bullets at dozens of protesters. As we mentioned in our previous episodes, these farmers are demanding a legal guarantee on minimum support prices and loan waivers, among other things, that they believe will help make farming more remunerative. In this episode, we discuss how these protests are unfolding on the ground and how concerned the BJP is about them in the lead-up to the Lok Sabha polls. But first, we talk about the demand for legally enforceable minimum support prices and the extent to which they will help farmers. And to discuss this, Indian Express's Udit Misra joins us. And he begins by telling us what exactly MSP is.
So the minimum support price is a price that the government offers, and the origins of an MSP are from a time when the government wanted to achieve 2-3 goals. One was that the farmers themselves were very distressed and they were poor, and the government wanted to ensure that they get some kind of a basic remuneration for their work and their effort. 2, that the government wanted food grains for itself so that it can then give to the poor consumers in the country, the people who are too poor to buy it. And 3, government also in that centralized planning framework wanted to ensure that there were certain things being produced and certain things not being produced, or, that way. So the idea was that, MSP was a great tool in that world to achieve multiple goals.
Right, and the way it works at the moment is that although minimum support prices are announced, they're only done for certain crops and only in certain states. And the main thing, of course, is that they're not legally enforceable. Can you explain what this means to a farmer?
Yes. So the important thing here to understand is that it is the government sort of making that offer, but this is not a legal guarantee as things stand. It has never been a legal guarantee. In a democratic system, there's always pressure on the government to come up with a higher MSP with every passing year because the costs of production might be going up. But there has never been a legal strain on the government to say that you will have to buy it at this price or you must buy. And the other thing is that the government, if it gives MSPs for only 19 or 20 crops, then that is limited by the number of crops on which it offers MSPs. The government doesn't always procure from all the states. So, again, the thing is, there's no point announcing an MSP if you do not procure the food grains. So it is possible that government announces an MSP but doesn't procure from Bihar or Odisha, and procures maybe largely from Punjab. In which case that MSP is effectively relevant only in Punjab, because if the government is not employing its systems to procure food grains from Bihar, then what is the point of an MSP? It's just some announcement by the government. So all those differences have been there all along.
And Udit, this entire thing started when 70% of India's workforce was employed in agriculture. And now that figure is somewhere around 55%. And also back then, agriculture also contributed a lot more to the GDP, and both the farmer and the consumer had very low income levels. What does it say about the state of Indian agriculture that this demand is still there and that the government still procures some crops at MSP?
So there are 2 ways to look at this question. One is that agriculture in the richest countries also is not something that, makes a lot of money. So even in richer countries where you have one person owning much more land, farmers as a community being a much smaller proportion, like a 1% or a 2% kind of a number of the total population, even there with large farms, heavily mechanized farming and fewer people owning the land, farming is not terribly remunerative. And so even those governments subsidize farmers in different ways a lot. The other thing to look at in India's case is that India is, from that perspective, much poorer. 86 or around that percent of our farmers are small and marginal, barely holding land holdings which are economically remunerative. You cannot actually grow at such a small scale and actually make money. And also the fact that we always had the concern for a lot of poor people where the government wanted to give them food grains. For example, even now, despite becoming the fifth largest economy, and even in the next 5 years when we would become the third largest economy, India would still be, it's already promised that we would still be giving 80 crore people free food, which just tells you the kind of stress that is there. So both ways, if you look at it, there was a genuine need, and there continues to be a genuine need in Indian agriculture to be supported. And there is nothing odd about it, because, that kind of support is required even in the richest countries.
Okay, so in that context, this demand to legally enforce MSP, I suppose, makes sense. But talk about the extent to which it will help farmers and the agricultural sector in the long run.
Okay, so if we look at the question of what happens if MSP is made a legal right, then there are two aspects of it. One is that what happens to government finances? Because, if the government has to legally buy everything and anything that the farmers produce, and it's a thing that some farmer can go to court and seek the government's intervention, then for argument's sake, you are looking at a government having to spend, a lot of money to just procure all that food. And then the question would be twofold. One, what happens to government finances? Where does government get that money? Already India has a fiscal deficit. So, all developing countries governments have fiscal deficit, which is that they borrow money to spend, right? So how much more can the government borrow? And what would be the cascading effects of government borrowing more just to buy food? The second thing is that what does the government do with that food, right? So if in the future we are trying to wean off or reach a point where, or if actually as economy grows and we become better and we don't need that food, the poor do not need that much food, then what will the government do with that food?
Right. And in the past, we have faced issues in terms of storing grains in warehouses. A lot of grains have also rotted in these warehouses. So there are those challenges as well. But this is all on the government side. How will a legal MSP affect the private sector?
Yes. So making it a legal guarantee would also mean that this would then be impinging on private sector, which is to say that if a private company wanted to buy something, it would also be bound by that. And that could, again, in argument, in a hypothetical sense, could be a massive hurdle or a barrier for a lot of private sector players. They may say that this is not profitable, not out of any misgivings for the farmers or anything, but just simply it doesn't make profit. And so many companies may not get into that. Now, food processing is a huge opportunity for India. It's a great industry for India to get a lot of surplus labor from farming into an industry which is far more remunerative. The same potato being turned into potato chips is going to produce much more value, more income, more salaries, more prosperity. So we need potato chip factories and that kind of trade. But if we were to say that you'll force companies to buy at a very high price, then that whole thing can derail. So both ways, there are big question marks on whether making legal guarantees is a good idea or not.
Right. So considering the fact that agriculture is not that remunerative and 86% of our farmers are small and marginal, so they do require help, talk about the other alternatives we can look for if not a legal guarantee on MSP.
Yes. So obviously, MSP has a limited role in the short term because it provides an immediate buffer. Suppose the prices crash, then, and the private sector just, is not willing to pay more, then the government's role, farmers would look towards the government. The government cannot abdicate that role in the short term, at least. But if you look at it more from medium to long term perspective to somehow make Indian agriculture more remunerative, then you have to figure out essentially what are the reasons why Indian agriculture is unremunerative to begin with. Why does a farmer have lower bargaining power? And now that could be as simple as having more warehouses, investing in warehousing. Because when the farmer has done with the harvest, if he or she doesn't have the space to keep the produce, then they are under tremendous pressure to immediately sell. So that panic sell can be avoided. Also, systems can be done where the government can say that we will provide some kind of a layer of payment. Whereas if the market is not paying you all the money that, you should have got, suppose 1,000 rupees for a unit of produce, and you're only getting 800 rupees, then the government pitches in by giving 200.
So it's not procuring anything, it's just paying a difference if the prices fall.
It's just paying the difference. It is essentially providing some kind of an income support. The government can completely do away with all of this also and simply go from the perspective of giving direct income support to the farmers. Say that, if you fall in this income bracket, then we will provide you extra money. Those will be things which will provide less distortions to the market prices of goods. There is a one side to this whole debate which is not often discussed, is the consumer side. Often governments are far more concerned, and if you look at the data in the recent story that I've done, you'll find that in the lead up to a general election, MSPs increase at a rate of almost double-digit increases, but immediately after the election year, the MSP increases are much lower. That's because higher MSPs also add to food inflation, if the food prices are high. And often governments try to stymie inflation by keeping prices lower. So there is this other side of the whole debate, which is about food price inflation, which again is equally politically potent in that sense. That comes into the picture. So a legal right of that kind can also derail the whole food price management economy also.
Now, yesterday, even as farm leaders said that they were open to talks with the central ministers to resolve the issues that are plaguing them, protests at the borders continue to intensify. As we mentioned earlier, the security forces have been using tear gas shells and rubber bullets against the protesters. At least 10 people were injured yesterday at the Shambhu border, while over 40 were injured at the Datta Singhwala Khanori border, after the Haryana police used rubber bullets, tear gas and water cannons. Indian Express's Raakhi Jagga was on the ground when security forces first retaliated at the Shambhu border on Tuesday. She now joins my colleague Niharika Nanda to talk about it.
Raakhi, you were at the Shambhu border on Tuesday when the farmers started marching towards Delhi. Tell us how things unfolded there.
Actually, I was there on February 12 as well. February 12 when the preparations were being done by the Haryana government, and on February 13 as well. They started at two locations. One is Shambhu border or barrier, we can call it, and one is Khanori border. And both the borders, they are Punjab-Haryana borders, which go further. These roads extend to Delhi. And by 11, they had reached at the barrier site where the first barricade has been installed by Haryana government, and 3 or 4 tractors had also reached there. And by 11:30 or so, as per the decision of the farmer union leaders, the youngsters were told to remain in the front, and a few middle-aged farmers were also accompanying them just to guide them and all. And at around 11:30, as they started removing the first barricade, the first slab, these are the concrete slabs which have been laid. So as they touched the first slab, the tear gas shell came from the other side. And because I was standing close to that tractor, the moment the tractor was touching the slab, tear gas shell was being fired from the other side. At that time, the crowd, they were unprepared that the paramilitary forces or the rapid action forces on the other side of the border, they will be too quick that even a touch at the barricade, they will give such a response. And as the tear gas shells, they were falling on the other side, and the sound was like a bomb. And there was a lot of hustle and bustle. People started running. And it could have been a stampede also at that time. But somehow a large number of people, they ran from that side, and only a few were left at that side, the ones who were determined that we have to break the barriers and move ahead. And the things didn't end here only. Then we went a little 300 meters away from the earlier location. A number of people, they went a little away. and there was a highway police picket of Punjab Police. A temporary setup was done by them, and at that time, a drone came from Haryana side, and we were not aware that we just thought that the drone is capturing the heads and how many numbers are on the other side. But we were taken aback when the drone threw the tear gas shell, and I was just pushed by the cops towards the picket that I should go inside. And because I wasn't aware this is going to happen, and the Punjab police cops, they must be aware of such things. So they literally pushed me inside just to save myself. And just near to that location, the ambulances were parked, and the Punjab Police's 2 buses were parked where in which the staff had come. The water tanker was also there. And just close to that location, that tear gas shell had been fired. And immediately after that, we spoke to the Patiala Deputy Commissioner. That area falls in Patiala district. So I spoke to the Patiala Deputy Commissioner, and then they said that we have spoken to the Ambala Deputy Commissioner that they should not come deep inside Punjab and throw the tear gas shells. They should continue their operations at their borders only. However, that wasn't adhered to, although they had promised that they will follow it. But till late evening, the drones kept on coming deep, till 300 meters inside, and they kept on throwing the shells.
And Rakhi, were the farmers prepared for this kind of retaliation by the security forces?
So they had said we are used to face even harsher things close to the international border. So, we are prepared. They had come with few of the gunny bags. And they said if the tear gas shell comes to this side, so already we will wet that sack with water and we will throw that sack on the shell, and that will douse it, and its effect can be minimized. But the shelling was too heavy that they couldn't do it to all the shells. They could manage to douse few of the shells, but as the shelling from the other side was too heavy, so it wasn't possible for them to douse all the tear gas shells. And while they were removing the barricades, they had the loaders with them and the rope with them, and the rope was also tied with that loader, with the help of which the concrete slabs were being taken away. And then they had grinders with them, with which they were grinding the iron nails which were embedded in the concrete in the third layer of the barricading, and our barbed iron wires. They were removed with the help of that tractor's front equipment only, and that was thrown away by the farmers. And at the same time, the nearby villagers, as the farmer community, they were coming with bananas, water, and even salt. Bananas were being given to the ones who were marching ahead, just that they should have some energy. And water also, in between, they must be feeling thirsty. And they were suggesting them that they should lick salt. They inhale that tear gas. This was a suggestion of the elderly farmers that this salt can help you minimize the effect of the gas in your throat.
So, Rakhi, you reported on the 2020 farmers' protest as well. How different is the situation on ground this year?
Yeah, I was there on 26 November 2020 as well, when the farmers had first broken the barricades at the Shambhu barrier. I was there at that time as well. But at that time, the security was not too tight, and even at that time, the cops were not too harsh as well. And drones were not used at that time, and even direct hitting of the tear gas shelling was also not done at that time. And this time it's different, that the police force is too tight, the multi-layer barricading is there. And at this time, as all the farmer unions are not supporting the Delhi Chalo call, so the ones who are following this Delhi Chalo call, they are only at 2 locations only. One is at Shambhu border and another is at Khanori border.
Yeah, and we understand that a number of people also got injured during this tear gas shelling and the entire commotion that happened. Could you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, last time in 2020, not many people were injured due to tear gas shelling. But this time, in yesterday, only at Shambhu border alone, as per the official figures, 30 persons, they had got injuries, although all of them are out of danger. But still they got injuries and they had to be taken to the hospital for treatment. And 2 of them are admitted in Rajendra Medical College at the moment. One had got head injury and an injury near the eye, as the rubber bullet had hit that guy. Once it hits you with a velocity, then it hurts you. And another one is a farmer named Mota Singh, and he's from Hoshiarpur, and he has been referred to the plastic surgery department because the upper part of the skin has been laid off from his hand, and then the surgery needs to be done for this injury. 3 or 4 protesters, they are admitted in civil hospital Rajpura, and the 10 or 12, they were discharged yesterday on February 13 itself, and a few of them, they preferred leave the hospital, and as they were adamant that we want to go to the protest site, and 10 or 12, they left the hospital, I mean against medical advice, as they were adamant that we want to go at the protest site, and they took the medicine and the first aid and they went away.
And Rakhi, we are speaking on Wednesday. What do we know about the current situation on the ground right now?
At the border, as of now, as these unions, they were very active towards removing the barricades. But on Wednesday, although the pressure buildup was being done, the tractors were lined up and all, but they hadn't started the operation barricade removal till Wednesday afternoon. And the meeting of the farmer union coordinators, the Jagjit Singh Dalewal, Sarvan Pandher, and few other leaders who are part of this Deli Chalo march, they was going on till late afternoon. And interestingly, farmers, they started flying kites near the Shambhu border and Khanori border as well, because they said if we will fly kites, so the activity of the drones will be hampered. So this is their novel way to save themselves from the tear gas shelling. And although a number of farmer union leaders, they claimed that they had advised the youngsters at the forefront that they should stay calm and they should wait till the senior leaders tell them what to do next. However, they were not stopping, and as per the information, they have started again moving ahead, and they are trying to remove the rest of the barricades. And the Haryana security forces, they are once again doing heavy shelling, and even the rubber bullets are being used.
Now, the fact that these protests are happening just a few months before the 2024 Lok Sabha polls is not lost on anyone. Many believe the time was strategically chosen to apply pressure on the ruling government.
See, any protest which brings people to the national capital in, hundreds and thousands would be a bad optics for the ruling party.
That's Indian Express's deputy editor Liz Mathew, who writes on the BJP for the paper.
And the ruling government also. And especially BJP is a party which really give a lot of importance and emphasis to optics. The pictures and the visuals will be seen by all across the country, and also it will be seen across the globe. Optically, it's bad optics for BJP.
But she says despite that, despite caring about optics and what happened last time, the BJP is not really worried about the impact this would have on the upcoming polls.
Because BJP says, the demand they are making, the timing. Parliament is over, the last session is over, and Lok Sabha is going to be dissolved soon. And there is no parliament to make a law. Like the main demand that, minimum support price, it should be a legal guarantee. It is illogical. That's what the BJP says. So there is no time for the ruling party and the ruling government to push for a law, if at all they agree. One. Secondly, the BJP leaders say an MSP as a legal guarantee is not a good idea. It's actually going to harm the interest of the farmers.
Some leaders say that right now, because there is not a legal guarantee to MSP, even crops of uncertain quality can be purchased. But once a legal MSP is introduced, farmers will have to follow prescribed quality guidelines, which could potentially hurt a lot of farmers across the country.
This is one example they are saying. And another thing is that, the BJP is, other than the demand which they say, that the party will be able to convince the people, they will reach out to different personalities and different community leaders to tell people that this is politically motivated. And they are even comparing it with the protests which is happening in the Europe. They are saying it is left people who are guiding them. And also, although it is not very loud, there are also indications or allegations, the charges that of Khalistan, any involvement also, which have not yet become very public or loud. Well, ultimately, they will bring it up also.
But besides this, when we look at the issue more electorally, Liz tells us that during the peak of the protests last time, the fear within the party was that it would affect as many as 40 Lok Sabha constituencies. But this time, the Rashtriya Lok Dal, which has a huge Jat support base, has vouched for the NDA government and is expected to soon join hands with the BJP. And this is what the government thinks will diffuse the situation for them.
Also, the Bharat Ratna for the Jat patriarch Chaudhary Charan Singh, which was also BJP points out that it was very timely, just ahead of the protest they were planning. So obviously this could keep away many Jat community leaders and community from the protest, and it would not be a success like what happened, or it would not even be able to make an optics like what happened last time.
But besides the Bharat Ratna for a prominent Jat leader and the support of the RLD, the leaders within the party also feel that the protests could also trigger counter-polarization. In UP, for example, when the Jats joined the agitation, others, including those from the Gujar community, threw their weight behind the BJP in the 2021 assembly elections. But there are, however, concerns for the party in Punjab, where, according to Liz, the party is in shambles and has not been able to rebuild its network after its key ally, the Shiromani Akali Dal, cut ties with the party over the farm laws.
And Aam Aadmi Party had made a splendid entry into the state in the last assembly election. And the BJP would definitely have some adversarial impact for this farm protest in Punjab. Again, they're hoping there could be counter-polarization, but also they are not very confident about it.
The other thing that Liz points out is that in the lead up to the polls, BJP is looking for support from its regional alliance partners, including, of course, the JJP in Haryana and the Shiromani Akali Dal in Punjab. And these protests could come in the way of that.
So with this kind of protest and the government's reaction to it, and especially with the Congress and Aam Aadmi Party announcing support to it, it will be difficult for these parties to kind of, declare a formal alliance with the BJP. Even JJP can be more demanding if the party is going to be in a precarious situation in some of the 10 constituencies in Haryana and also in Punjab.
You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and was produced by Niharika, Nanda and me, Shashank Bhargava. If you liked the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.